Hey, what's up guys? It's Chuck from Brady Adventures, and today we are going to install our Frontrunner Slimline 2 roof rack on our 100 series Land Cruiser Overland build, Bernard. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. This is the kind of injuries you can expect. Oh my gosh, that looks like it might be tender. That might take at least 2 or 3 years before you recover.
I think you have to rub my thighs.
Tools just for the rails that I used were 10mm ratcheting open-ended wrench and this 4mm hex, and that was for the center section where the rails come together. I used this 1/4" ratchet extension universal joint and 13mm socket to finish up the bolts, and this 13mm ratcheting open-ended wrench just to get them started. So I had to cut the rubber ditch molding with this and then smooth it out with the file. I ended up using the screwdriver and a couple of those plastic pry bar panel tools to get the original gasket piece. I have this ultra black gasket maker from Permatex to seal between the rack mounts. This is the silicone I put against some of the threads, and I'm going to cover that whole area above the gasket material. Right, now I'm working on getting the factory rack off. I heard that this just pries up. Oop, broke that. Ooh, I did snap a little piece of that. It's funny because the things I looked up, these were Torx. Must have changed that at some particular year. This front one here. Ooh, I feel like I broke one of those too. Ooh, man, this thing is, that plastic is brittle. Oh, shoot. It broke off and shot over in the bushes somewhere. At least they're not looking rusty though. That is a good thing. I didn't get any of these covers off without breaking something. These bolts are 12mm and they're coming out pretty easy. There's definitely some sealant on the threads, holding it in there a little bit. This little washer's on here. That one kind of came apart. Probably to keep water out of there. What I've read is these are attached through a little T-slot, and we're either going to slide this forward or back. It looks like maybe this will pop right off. Oh, look at that. Of course, it snapped some things, but that popped right off. So that's different than some of the older ones that have the T-slot. Now, hopefully this will just lift right up. Go. Alright, so now I need to get a friend to help me take this off. Okay, before I do anything, I want to see what this is looking like. These spacers are going to go down in here. There we go. So this is just some kind of gasket. I have to scratch that paint. On this side I've got 3 bolts. I need to investigate which way that is because I'm going to have to cut this, I think, off. Yep, I can see the other bolt. Looking down there, I can see it right down there. Rather than take all this out, I'm wondering if I can just do this. Perfecto. This little gasket's gonna come up in one piece. Oh, nice. A little better than I thought. I'm gonna get that other bolt out. I'm just trying to get all this little glue and gasket off of here so I can get a nice good seal from my silicone. Got paper towels in there soaked in mineral spirits. Hopefully that'll just clean it up really nice. I do not want any leaks. So yesterday I worked on getting the rack in, and I ended up taking a break, getting it all put together and getting those rails cleaned out. Took a little longer than I thought. I ended up soaking spots with a little mineral spirits, and I got them cleaned out. I had to cut this up here. It's a little bit rough. I might try to file that down a little bit. But now I'm ready to put the spacers in and seal them and get the whole thing going. The interesting thing in the instructions is it says to put silicone around the bolt holes, silicone around the spacers, position the spacers into the vehicle's gutters, silicone side down. Thinking about this and I'm like, okay, so I put the spacer down and the bolt holes are in there and there's silicone around it and then the bolt goes in. You have this positioned over top of it. There's still going to be plenty of space around that bolt for moisture to get in there. I think what I'm going to do is initially do it the gasket maker around here like that, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of that void down there with some additional silicone just to make sure nothing gets down in there. So while it's going to take me some extra time, I've decided to go ahead and clean these out, get the spacers in, and get the rails mounted on here. Let that dry really good for a couple days and then clean the roof real good and wax it up before I put the actual rack on. I've decided just for good measure too, I'm going to put a little bit of this high-end silicone just on the end of the threads to get some down in there, just in case it gets past that gasket. Instructions say push it back as far as possible, so I've got the bolts all slightly tight but not all the way, and now I'm gonna slide this thing back if I can. Yep, these two are all the way. I also found the best way to tighten these is with a 1/4-inch ratchet with a universal joint. They're all 13 millimeters, and I'm just going to tighten these down to just to where they're a little bit snug. I'll come back and torque them after the gasket material's set for an hour. That'll give me time to get the other rail up top. Okay, one thing I wanted to point out is I didn't get this to seat quite fully because I tightened all these bolts down first and did this last. So I did the other side different, and I came back and tightened these up before I tightened these last two over here. Made sure that was nice and seated as tight as it could be. So now I'm going back and I'm filling the rest of the cavity with this gasket maker. Hopefully I've got enough for all of them, but if I don't, I have some other silicone, so I'm just gonna go in here and really fill this up here. Probably enough around the threads and everything down there, but man, I do not want water inside the Land Cruiser. Okay, so there you have it. The rails are in. These are gonna mount the rack. So I've got one here, and then skip 2 slats, and I've got 2, and then skip 3 slats, and I've got 2 on the end there. The instructions say slat 1, 4, 5, 9, and 10. Because I have this extension, extra 6 inches, it's really 2, 5, 6, 10, and 11. You just slide those in, and the way I have this laying, we'll pick it up, and then we'll flip it over, and ease it up onto the roof. Now this rack, it's a little bit longer. If you get the regular rack without the extension, you want to slide these bolts in to this before you put the deflector on. So just keep that in mind. Now, take a look at this guy. Unfortunately, I wasn't thinking, I didn't get the camera set up. We took this, we had placed the bolts in it while it was upside down. We flipped it in over and per Frontrunner's advice so that the bolts wouldn't slide out. And we lifted it up on here, and now, Mr. Boilo.
Yes, sir.
What are we doing now?
I think what we have to do now is we have to take these bolts that we see up here and lift this rack up a little bit and line them with these holes in this bracket right here so we can get them all in. Then we'll be able to tighten them down with the nuts.
So I'm going to get each of these in, then we're going to position the rack left to right. Would you suggest quality coal region liqueurs?
I would suggest that or a good Yingling lager.
We're going to tighten the back ones just a little bit. We'll bang it into position.
And now it's got to come towards you. Stop right there. That's pretty close right there. You got it?
I'm at 2 5/8-ish.
What's 5/8?
It's 2 tiny notches.
Yeah. Right on.
So I'm going to tighten just these 2.
So just bang it towards me. Can we get some laser set up so I know?
Measure it with a micrometer, mark it with a pencil, cut it with an axe.
So I am a 16th less than an inch and a half. Is that what you're after?
Yep.
Do I start tightening this sucker down?
Yes.
Here it is.
Dude, I think it looks great. Thank you for the help. So have a beer. You come up here.
Yeah.
Have a beer with me.
I'll have a beer with you. I'll be up there in a second.
Big thing is, how much noise is the roof rack gonna make? If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. And always feel free to leave us any comments or questions that you might have.